At 9, Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So the argument goes, if House Republicans don't give Mr. 10%, the big guy, President Biden, a clean debt ceiling raise, then, according to Captain Kangaroo Body Double, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, the country will be unable to pay its bills around June, creating a default on our debt and the end of Western civilization.
Right. And Kevin McCarthy is meeting with President Trump today to talk about it.
Well, is that true? Is that argument that's being advanced? Is that the case? Is that what we face? For more on this topic and others, please be joined by Alex Pollock, Senior Fellow at the Mises Institute. He served as the Principal Deputy Director of the Office of Financial Research in the Treasury Department. He's also the former president and CEO of Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago and author of Finance and Philosophy, Why We're Always Surprised. Alex Pollock, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having me. Good morning.
So is the Biden administration and those TV economists on CNBC, are they right? It's debt ceiling raise or bust?
They're not right, we think. And it is true that we're running up against the debt ceiling. Personally, I'm a big supporter of limiting the debt, which is already extremely high, as we know. But the Treasury is in the position of somebody who owes money, but they've maxed out their credit card and they're up against the credit card limit, and they feel like they can't pay. Paul Kupiec and I have written recently to say, well, you say you can't pay, but isn't it odd? You own $500 billion worth of gold. So if you could use that, you could pay. You wouldn't be able to put the political pressure on the Republicans who rightfully wish to control spending and deficits, and we could easily, doing that, get through the end of the fiscal year and put in regular order a serious budget deficit reduction process and think about where the debt should go. And we can do that by using the gold. That's what our recent article
it sounds like an easy solution.
Turn the gold into cash and pay your bills.
Turn the gold into cash. Well, you know, in the history of banking, gold was cash. Gold is the classic monetary asset. Well, how much gold does the Treasury own? The answer is 261 million ounces, which is the same as 8,000 tons. If I could give you a little example here, I said it's like somebody who has maxed out his credit card and they owe $1,000. Their credit card is maxed out. They've asked the credit card company to raise their limit. The credit card company said no. So they're going to say, well, I can't pay my debt. And the creditor might point out, but you own $5,000 worth of gold, and you only owe me $1,000.
Well, it
to
seems
which the Treasury, as debtor, says, yes, but I consider that gold is only worth $25 because I've got it on my books at the price of 50 years ago. And we say, well, that's fine. Put the price up to the market.
Yeah, but this seems like such an easy solution. Why aren't they doing it then?
Well, one is I honestly think they haven't thought of it, and we're trying to call it to their attention. The second thing is it actually does take a change in a statute. It's the Gold Reserve Act. The Gold Reserve Act allows the Treasury to monetize the gold by issuing gold certificates. It's just making a deposit of the value of the gold in the Fed, which they could then write checks against. But the Act, going back to 1973, says you have to value your gold at $42.22 an ounce. Well, the market price, as we know, is more than $1,900 an ounce. So you've got a 50-year-old price put into the statutes. I think, and Paul, my co-author, thinks that it would be a lot smarter to change the statute to say we're going to treat our gold as worth what it really is worth and allow it to be spent. It would be the same as coining the gold, only you do it through the Fed so you could write checks on it. That would be smarter, we think, than raising the debt limit. And we think it would also be smarter than giving the spenders the big political win by saying, well, you caused a default on United States debt by sticking to the credit limit. It does seem like an elegant solution, doesn't it?
It does, and I'd love to hear the response on the Hill to that. I mean, just even starting with the basic idea that an asset in your possession should be valued at its current market price, not its market price from 50 years ago. That seems pretty straightforward.
Doesn't it?
It seemed like that would make all kinds of sense, which is probably why it's not going to happen. Right. Yeah. So one other thing, too, you wrote about recently. This is interesting, though, because as we understand it, Jay Powell and the mystics on the Fed board are going to save our economy for us. They know just which dials to turn and levers to pull. They did for a decade, other mystics, with quantitative easing. And now, over the last year, when they've been tightening up, we'll have a 25 basis point hike next month, and then maybe they'll start going back to the good old days of quantitative easing, and all will be right with the world. Maybe we should not place so much faith in these mystics, considering, as you write, that the Fed is technically insolvent or will be by year's end.
Yes, that's right. They're insolvent in two ways. One is the mark-to-market of their portfolio, as of the last quarter, was about a negative $1 trillion mark-to-market. But even worse than that, on a cash basis, operating month to month and week to week, they are now losing serious amounts of money. In the last week, the Fed reports weekly, and this is the January 25th report, they lost $1.3 billion in a week. We think that they're on track over the next year to lose maybe $100 billion, which is more than twice their capital. That would make them technically insolvent. Now, they can print up the money. You know, everybody says, what's to worry? They can print it up. Well, the worry is twofold. One, it should make you doubt perhaps the financial acumen of somebody who runs its own balance sheet while claiming to manage the whole economy, runs its own balance sheet to lose $100 billion a year, and to become technically insolvent. And secondly, that money is actually costing the taxpayers. That's money that is increasing the national deficit when they lose it.
So I got an idea. Maybe work out some kind of work release for Sam Bankman-Fried and put him on the Fed board, since they operate similarly. You know, he can figure a way out of this.
Financial funnies with Dan Frost.
So that is sort of that is sort of remarkable. And you note in your piece that that would be the what you're describing, the first annual operating loss for the Fed since 1915. So
right, and that was when they were just starting up and they didn't have any business to speak of.
Right, so we're getting
now they got an $8 trillion balance sheet. That's a lot of business,
and they can't seem to make the math work. That's encouraging. So how confident are you about them sticking the landing and us going back to the heady pre-pandemic days of a market on a sugar high, so everybody regains what they lost in their 401k?
The basic problem is, in my book, Finance and Philosophy, you were nice enough to mention, there's a chapter called The Most Dangerous Financial Institution in the World, in which I nominate the Federal Reserve for that honor. And the problem is that they have a vast financial and monetary economic power, but it's combined with a fundamental inability to know what they're doing.
It's a bad combination. Yeah.
It is a bad combination. Well, it might work out right. You know, when you don't know what you're doing, you might get lucky and it might work out okay. But on the other hand, it might be a disaster. And my opinion is that that no one, not the Fed, not anybody has the knowledge to, as they say, quote, manage the economy. You don't know it, and you can't know it, and the Federal Reserve doesn't know and can't know even what the results of their own actions will be, let alone what the results of everybody else's actions and decisions will be. So that puts it in a tough spot. I once said we ought to have a lot of sympathy for the members of the Open Market Committee, because they must know that they don't really know, and yet they have to have a public vote all the time of pretending that they know. It's quite interesting, this thing that we've created in the way of a fiat currency central bank leading the ability to run unlimited or at least very large deficits and full of the government's debt, which it has bought and paid for by effectively printing money. It's a fascinating situation and very worrisome.
Yeah, I'd say. So what do you anticipate or worry about in the short term? It seems like we still benefit from being the world's reserve currency and sort of thus, to borrow from Buckley, the tallest skyscraper in Wichita. And that's enough for the market to rally, even in the face of bad earnings reports recently.
Yes, most interesting. We have what people talk about now as high interest rates. In fact, they're sort of normal interest rates. The average short-term rate over the last 70 years since the 1950s is about 4.5%, so more or less where we are now. But we got thanks to the quantitative easing, which you all mentioned before, we got a lot of financial structure built on the assumption that interest rates would be closer to zero than average. We got a lot of houses bought and built on the idea that mortgage rates would be 3% instead of 5 or 6, which is normal, 5 or 6, and there is a serious financial risk in there. Could you get the soft landing you referred to in a minute? Maybe, but as I say, in my opinion, that'd be a matter of luck, and I personally think it's unlikely.
And what if we're unlucky? What does that look like?
It looks like more losses. It looks like house prices falling. It looks like financial markets falling. It looks like deficits rising, and even more need to monetize our gold so we can get into a serious political discussion between House and Senate on how we're going to address this in a financially responsible way.
He is Alex Pollock, Senior Fellow at the Mises Institute, served as the Principal Deputy Director of the Office of Financial Research at the Treasury Department, former President and CEO of Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago, and author of Finance and Philosophy, Why We're Always Surprised. Alex Pollock, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Want to know how to get closer to your customers?
Well, you certainly won't get it using online marketing. Why not try the original social media with
Real customer intimacy. You're listening to it now, podcasting and radio. And with an audio marketing campaign with Radioactive Media, it's like the difference between a symposium with thousands of people and your client one-on-one lunch. Throw away those measly 2% conversion rates. Think about 15 to 25%, which many Radioactive Media customers experience. Podcasts and radio reach almost 350 million weekly listeners with an average return of $5 for every $1 spent. Radioactive Media can help grow your business and can show you a positive ROI with measurable and accountable results nationwide, reaching millions starting at under $10,000 a week, under $5 CPM. Heck, we believe in the power of audio so much, we even use it ourselves. Like right now. Start generating profits today. Text the word radio to 5